Hey everybody, welcome to Untether.tv. I'm your host, Rob Woodbridge. This is that place where we take the deep dive into the mobile space to try to figure out how you can make money, why you should be in the space. Sit down with some of the greatest minds that are pushing the boundaries of mobile, the things that we don't even know that we need right now, but we will in a very short period of time. Very excited today, as I usually am about this industry, to be joined by another Ottawa, Canada company. We do have companies up here that are innovating, and this time we're going to take a deeper dive into PR. That's public relations, PR, and the tech behind PR, specifically focused on mobile and the impact that mobile is going to have on this industry. It's gone through this upheaval from the web world. Now it's going through a massive upheaval on the mobile side. And to talk about this, really to dive into this, can't think of anybody better. Brett Serjeantson, who is the founder and the CEO of a company called MediaMiser. Going to bring Brett in right now. Brett, welcome. Thanks for doing this. Really appreciate you telling your story.
Glad to be here.
So, why don't, I'm familiar with MediaMiser because, hell, you are an Ottawa, Canada company, which is the greatest thing. And you've been making some waves in the last year with some funding and some acquisitions that you've made and some great talent acquisitions and growth. Why don't you enlighten everybody else about what MediaMiser is, just in case they haven't heard of you? What is MediaMiser?
Well, MediaMiser is essentially a media monitoring and media analysis technology company for both traditional and social media. When we originally developed our product, it was in the traditional media, and as soon as social media made its mark in the internet world, we quickly grasped onto that because any kind of media for us is a wealth of information. So essentially what we do is the biggest thing we do is we leverage that information and try to derive meaning for our customers. In fact, I would go as far as saying is we're disseminating that media intelligence to our customers. So obviously, if we're disseminating that information, we're going to have to get that information to our customers the way they want it. And right now, mobile is the way people want to get that information.
Well, when you say mobile, I mean, I love hearing that because, it certainly is. I think it's the perfect mechanism for many things that we think the web was the perfect mechanism for, or that print was the perfect mechanism for. But I mean, what was the reason that you got into this? Do you come from a PR background? What was it about this? Was it a mix? Like so many things, it's an engineering challenge that you wanted to attack here.
Well, it's kind of funny. I mean, like most young people, or I'm not young anymore, but
so we were once, though.
When I was young, I think with youth, you become aimless sometimes. And so you go to school, you don't know what you want to get into. And after graduating from university, I decided to diversify a bit and tried to get into the PR realm of things. And I went back to school, took PR, and lo and behold, after graduating from public relations and communications, I realized I didn't want to do that anymore as soon as I graduated. So what I did after that was, this was the early days just before the high-tech boom with the internet. So I jumped onto that very early on. I got into a lot of multimedia web development and went back to school for actually programming. So I think when it comes to finding success in life, people have always told me to specialize when I was younger. I've kind of bucked that trend. I think where you're going to get the most out of life is where you can combine experiences. So I took that early on, that communication background that I had, and was able to combine that with the internet, programming. So that is where essentially led me to the concept of MediaMiser.
And when did you form the company?
Well, we started messing around. Like I previously worked at great companies such as QNX, and for people that don't know QNX, they're ironically going to be the next OS for the BlackBerry. Yeah. They're an Ottawa-based company. Dan Dodge and Gord Bell, the founders of that company, they're personal heroes of mine. Basically, they have shown the entrepreneurial spirit that I think most people can relate to, or most entrepreneurs can relate to. And they had fun doing it. So while I was working there, they would tell us these stories, and they inspired me to start my own company. So um, I would work hard during the day, and then I'd go home with my young family and just mess around with concepts. Especially at that time, I really believed in this in the SaaS industry. So around 2001, I started messing around with SaaS, and at that time, the only companies really doing it were companies such as Salesforce. Everybody's familiar with Salesforce, and for me, this became the best way to deliver information, especially when it comes to business. So I jumped on that right away. Just started messing around, basically prototyping. Next thing you know, the prototype turned into what we have today, the application, and I was able to begrudgingly quit QNX because it was such a great company, and spread my wings and follow the leadership of Dan Dodge and Gord Bell, and strike out for myself and for my partners. And like Dan Dodge and Gord Bell, through their influence, we're able to provide jobs to local Ottawa talent, and we're happy to do that. And we're very proud of the small success we have right now. I call it small because we have much greater things that we want to accomplish in the future.
All right, so talk about what you guys. I mean, it's really interesting because we have this great ecosystem of entrepreneurial talent in the city, and I think every city has their little core of entrepreneurial talent. But a company like QNX really is paving the way for. I mean, they're in the space shuttle. They were in the space shuttle, and they're in cars, and they're also in the Playbook, and soon to be the BlackBerry operating system of choice. So, how much was that influence, being in that environment around QNX? How much did that influence your decisions that you made when you set up MediaMiser and the direction you took?
Well, yeah, at that point, to be honest with you, nobody saw QNX going in mobile devices. It made sense. It made a lot of sense for it to be in a mobile device, and ironically, that's the way it turned out. And I think at that point, the time I was at QNX, people were looking at it potentially as a desktop solution. Yep. But the amount of entrepreneurship, the amount of creativity that was in QNX, it inspired us all, especially under the leadership of Dan Dodge and Gord Bell.
And was this before you left, before they were acquired by RIM?
They were actually acquired. When I was there, they were actually acquired by Harman Kardon. Harman Kardon.
Harman Kardon, that's right. Harman Kardon. That was a weird.
It was great. I mean, not just in case people are casing my house, it's okay because my Harman Kardon stuff is fairly old now. But that was a great bonus being able to get that equipment.
No kidding. No kidding. So you set out on your own and you start MediaMiser, and you said it was a traditional play to begin with. You went certainly around that time, obviously web. When did mobile start to creep up into the conversation?
Well, actually, ironically, the one thing that I had when I was at QNX, and it kept me sane, was a Palm device.
The original Palm Pilot.
Well, I actually had a T3. The T3 was awesome. And early on, I made sure our application worked on the T3.
So, I mean, I remember that. I had a Palm Tungsten. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. Tungsten 3.
That was the awesome. Best feeling device I've ever had, right? I mean, it was just It was heavy, solid.
You could slide it in and out. It was awesome. This was an awesome device. I even went out there and they had a Wi-Fi card. I bought a Wi-Fi card for it, slapped it in, and I would actually test with it. And actually, at the time, Palm actually had a test environment, and I was able to develop actually early on our application to work with a T3, then later on the BlackBerry. So we had an interface that people could go in early on, and it was web-based. But obviously now with mobile apps, it's way more sophisticated. You can do way more with the apps. And the one thing I love about the apps is, and I guess everybody's got this hang up, how many passwords, how many logins do you have for various applications? With mobile apps, essentially they're integrated into your phone. It's a single solution. You don't have to have all these logins. It's great.
So let's talk about this for a second. Is that obviously the influence was there when it came to mobile, and you always had that in your head. Listen, mobile is mobile. I mean, not many people. I was just trying to look up a picture of the Tungsten because I have a very romantic memory of using this tool, because I was a Palm guy to begin with as well, and I moved into Palm, and it took I reluctantly went to BlackBerry, and then I embraced the iPhone. But so obviously it's in there somewhere where you are thinking mobile. So, but now with MediaMiser, you guys have released a couple of applications, and are you testing the bed right now, or are your customers asking for mobile solutions, or are you kind of leading them? Do they see it yet?
Well, the first couple of applications that we have put out there were to test our entry into the market. They were just actually to test our ability to get it onto something like Apple iTunes. Because anybody who's gone through that know it's not an easy process. You usually get it rejected a couple of times. So we actually have a couple applications out right now that people can download. Ones you can download for free, and that's MediaMiser U. And it's got a glossary of PR terms, and it's got some reports that we put into it, and it's useful. We've had quite a bit of downloads on that. And another one that we just came out with just to test our technology, test our media monitoring capabilities. This one's 99 cents, and it's WIM, W.im, or WIM, W-I-M, WIM News. And you can download all the latest news around the world, and it organizes your news by the most important to the least important. And well, actually, it filters out the least important, I should say. And it allows you to actually publish that information to either Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. It's a great application. I use it on a daily basis. If people want to go to my Twitter feed, Serjeantson, they can see that I abuse that tool on a daily basis because, quite frankly, I'm a lazy, Twitter or tweeter or whatever you want to call it. I'm trying to just promote my own brand. So if I don't feel like saying something nonsensical, I'll just go out there and I'll use WIM, and I'll find a great news story, and I'll post it there, and I'll share it with the world. So I find it a great time-saving device, and keeps me focused. So so we use those two devices as experimental devices before we make the major launch of our next mobile apps. And so the first apps we're going to release both on the BlackBerry. Actually, we have released one on the BlackBerry, and we're going to put one on the iPhone. Is one for our mobile briefings. Like I said, one of the things that we do very well at MediaMiser is we're able to disseminate information. And I can't think of a better place to disseminate information than a mobile app. The experience is, in the past, we've sent it by PDFs, we've sent it by email. The mobile app experience when it comes through our briefing, and anybody that doesn't know what a briefing is, essentially in the past, people used to collect news stories, take those news stories and clip them out and put together these media packages, and there might be a bit of categorization, and they deliver to their boss a booklet of information of media clippings that they thought their boss should read. Well, these days, it's all done electronically, and email obviously was the next evolution to send that information. However, the next evolution on top of that is the app. And I believe the app goes far beyond just being able to read the information. With the app, you're going to be able to interact with everybody else getting that briefing, make notes on the briefing, be able to take that briefing onto the plane, have that briefing searchable and accessible at any point, any time. I mean, and everybody knows the woes that BlackBerry had in the past with their email service. An app is able to bypass that. Plus, what we found with devices such as the BlackBerry, a lot of the emails were getting truncated. Well, the way that the information is delivered through, say, our mobile app is just, it breaks the data down logically. It makes it more readable, easier to read, but you don't have those truncation issues. So, and plus, you get alerts. That's a big thing.
And I think it is. And but is it? Are you leading your customer this way, or this is a precursor to your bigger platform app deployment? But are you leading your customer? Are you saying that, listen, in order for us to be taken seriously in the mobile space with our customers, we at least have to have some kind of benchmark or some tests that to show that we can actually do this. We can push an app out and have a productive app out in the PR space.
I guess we're leading our customers just the way that Henry Ford led their customers with the Model T. I mean, I love this quote. Everybody's, I don't know if you've heard this quote before. Henry Ford once, apparently he said this. If somebody asked, what did he say? He said that if I went to my customers and asked what my customers would want, they would want a faster horse.
Right.
Right. So essentially what we have been listening to our customers is the issues. For example, we have one customer that was getting that truncation issue with the emails. They were sending out these long emails. So to get around that so they could view it through a mobile device, we actually had to deliver it through a mobile browser. And that mobile browser wasn't as interactive as the app. So what we did was we realized, okay, what are the customer's pain points? We actually have some very good GUI designers here. I'd call them almost like industrial designers. They would take a look at what our customers would want, how they would actually consume the information, and they develop the app based on how they wanted to consume that information. And it's when I look at the whole process, how we develop the app, it's actually quite impressive because at the end of the day, I think by delivering the information we do through the app, I wouldn't say it makes the customer more knowledgeable, but it does allow the customer to consume the information a lot easier. And so what that does, the transference of that knowledge is more streamlined. Therefore, it's easier to comprehend. But at the end of the day, it probably saves them a lot of time.
It's got to, that's an interesting point because in order to be sticky, right? There are so many great statistics out there around app usage, especially on these smartphones. I'm not talking about desktop, but app usage around quite literally that quite often, some staggering percentage, close to 75 or 80% of the statistics say that people don't use an app more than 5 times. So there has to be something in that app that brings people back day after day, week after week, month after month, time after time, ultimately is what it is. So is that, in PR, the constant churn of news, that's related to it. Each one of us has a Google alert that's either to a favorite artist or your name or whatever it is. But it's that constant knowledge that is going to keep people coming back to these apps. Is that where you guys are playing, or is it speed with which people can react to news that's coming in? How does mobile really fit into a PR strategy?
Well, first of all, I like to say, it's not just PR people that are using the information now. It crosses different business units within a corporation. I would just say that the PR people are almost acting like the eyes and ears of the organization to find the information that people need, and they have to be able to disseminate that information logically. And when I say logically, not all business groups are going to want the same information. So not just with the mobile app, but also with their platform, we're able to logically parse the information using a little bit of artificial intelligence workflows. We're able to break out that data and deliver the information that people want. For example, if you're a sales team, you're going to want sales-related information. If you're the C-level or the executives of your team, you're going to want competitive intelligence. You're going to want all this information that other groups may not need. If you're the HR person, you're going to want stuff for HR needs. So the way, and I'd like to also point out, it's not just the app that's important. It's how you're delivering the information. One of the things that I've asked my developers today, I asked them, well, how much time are you spending on the back end? And we're finding about 2/3 of our time is being spent actually on the back end, developing a smart back end with APIs, and about 1/3 of your time is actually spent developing the app. And I think that's a point that a lot of people don't realize. They think that I'm going to get myself an app developer, done deal. You're going to have to need the people to support that back end. So when it comes to the PR people, or like in some cases, it's not the PR people using these. Sometimes they're librarians at different organizations or the CIO group. they're taking that information and they're being able to take the information and disseminate it logically. And that's one of the big parts to our product that I think differentiates us. In one case, we have one client, they have, I think, over 500 people receiving our briefings with 300 different briefings. And we're able to get that information out within, with under 2 hours of time.
So, and I mean, the technology in the back end, and so my feeling is that the back end is obviously the most important thing, and the delivery mechanism that you're going to be using is mobile. But what is it? There's got to be some certain aspects of mobile, aside from the fact that it's mobile, it's with you all the time. Your reaction time can be better, but there's got to be a reason why somebody would either pay you guys to use this service, or that would decide on MediaMiser as opposed to anybody else because of this service. There's got to be a reason. There's got to be a hook. Is there something that you guys are considering around that mobile space? Is it location based? Where does this kind of move into, I think?
Well, when you look at what our core competencies at our company, as before, we're about dissemination of information. So again, I think a lot of people out there are suffering from information overload. And in some cases, some of our competitors, when we get some information about some of our competitors, what we're hearing is people are getting too much information of what they don't want and not enough information of what they do want. And what our product does is allows a team of people, or just sometimes an individual, to sift through the information quickly, find the information that the people require, and to be able to deliver that information in an organized fashion so they can consume it logically. And I think that the way I explained it, it almost seems, common sense, but it's almost acrobatic. When you look at the information that we're sending out to people, some people might look at the information saying, well, I could have got that information from Google, or I could have got, I would beg to differ. The information that we're able to glean, not just from the internet, we're getting it from traditional media, we're getting it from social media, to be able to pull in all those sources that are now available is a very daunting task. And this is what MediaMiser does very well. And I guess at the end of the day, the mobile is just the way people want to consume that information. And that's why we've introduced it.
So what about where this goes? I keep thinking about, look, mobile, everybody's carrying these devices with them. Does at some point the mobile PR experience, that news gathering, dissemination, distribution that we're talking about here, does it at some point completely bypass the desktop? Does it just go to mobile? Does it, what are the longer term impacts of mobile on this space?
In many cases, yes. Like one of the big things I hate saying this because I came from QNX, but I had a BlackBerry for a long time, and I'll be honest, I have an iPhone, and I got my wife an iPhone, and that opened my eyes. I got it last Christmas, and even though we were making, like, the plan was to move into mobile, that accelerated it big time, because we got a good jump on mobile, like I said, working with the Palm and other devices, even the BlackBerry, but the iPhone showed me what was possible. In fact, the one thing that I loved about the iPhone over all devices when it came to a development standpoint was it was very well thought out. Their APIs were very well thought out. The development environment was very well thought out. We actually used the iPhone to prototype how we were going to deliver the information because it was so complete. And if somebody's looking to see what device they want to go on, or what devices, I would say, well, if you're going on all three, I think the iPhone is a great device to actually prototype on, and that's what we did. We prototyped on there, and now we're rolling it out to BlackBerry, Android, at least on the briefing side, and we have also some other ideas. And one of the things that I think is really cool about the mobile world, like when it comes to any platform, is the fact it's changing the way I look at what these devices can do for people. When I look at a mobile device, it's almost like an extension of your server. It's almost like a node. Yes, you're collecting information, but you can also use these information, or you can also use these devices as a tool to put information back into your system. For example, We're building a contact management component. It's really, really cool. Like where if say if you're a PR person into the field and you're being interviewed, say by a journalist, they pull out your tape recorder. Well, you pull out your iPhone or your other mobile device, you plop it down, and you can record them. And then that interaction can be connected back with the news information that we have in our system. So it's all these devices are complementary.
So we talk about that for a second, because you're right, is that, at some point back in the day, I mean, a long time back in the day, we were getting our news given to us, pushed to us through traditional channels, newspapers, magazines, television, radio, right? This is where we would get a news hit that would be gathered. But now guys like me are creating news. We're creating content. We're creating, I mean, you've mentioned QNX a couple of times in here, and Dan Dodge, and at some point that this information should be indexed by QNX as a media hit, and we're creating this content. So that's a really interesting piece, that all of a sudden we've got citizen reporters out there who are carrying these devices around with us and capturing all this information, putting it up online. And the impact of that from a mobile standpoint and a PR standpoint is insane, because we're putting up so much content that nobody can consume it in a lifetime. So what do we do about that? How do you bring that into, is that what part of this is that you guys are doing?
Yes, we're bringing in media hits from anywhere, whether it's blogs, whether it's from videos such as this. We can bring it into our system. In some ways, when you look at our system, it's like almost like, in some cases, it is a virtual filing cabinet in a way, allowing you to source and search information. But again, I think one of the strengths that we have is also, I think it can't be overlooked, is being able to redisseminate that information. We can analyze the information and deliver that information, say in the form of analytics, charts, and stuff like that, and send it to the people who need it. But we can also take that information and deliver it back to our target audience, or the people that need to consume that information, in a format that they want to read it in, that's easily consumable. And that's what mobile offers us, is the ability to easily consume that information. The other thing too, as I brought up before, that I think is really important, again, how many logins do people have? They have tons of logins. I mean, the one thing I love about this, you set up your mobile app, you log in, you have it set up, and then next thing you know it, you have information actually being pushed to you. You get the alert, you get the information, you read it. I mean, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? Like if you have people's jobs to give you the information, really, should you take that extra step and have to run this analytics or be able to find the information that you think that you need? No way. You should be if you want to be more productive, you should be having that information sent to you so you understand what's going on. And again, like, it's not my job at the end of the day as the CEO of MediaMiser to constantly be looking for this. It's just not my job, I should say. It's partially my job to find this information, but at the end of the day, it's also the responsibility of we pay people to do this. So it's their job to make sure that I'm in the know also. So yes, I have a responsibility to be in the know, but I also need a strong staff that's going to tell me what is going on out there in the industry, and in devices such as the iPhone, the BlackBerry, the Android. They're great devices to be able, they're great target devices to be able to read that information in. And what MediaMiser provides is the tools to actually send that information into the devices.
I think it's phenomenal, because there's so many different layers here, and the outcome of working in the mobile space, and maybe it's the same. I'm going to assume it's the same in the PR world, is that the way that you've been emphasizing this dissemination and distribution of relevant content, right place, right time kind of content, and broken down into by even job category or tags or anything along those lines. That AI. You start to, the great thing about mobile is that it enables that at the right time in the right place. But when you're building for mobile, you're also changing the thinking, right? I've seen some PR monitoring software on the desktop that is complicated, right? Like you got to get in there and you got to understand it. But with this device, you can't be complicated. So nope. You're pushing simplicity on this. Now, does that have an impact on the flip side? Are you being influenced by what you're doing here on the desktop stuff that you're doing?
Well, I think what we're looking at the desktop is more of a creation tool for the content. That's how I look at it. Like when I look at MediaMiser, we actually on our, like if I look at our platform is actually a tool. Or it's a tool for sourcing the information, it's a tool for aggregating the information, and it's a tool for analyzing and disseminating the information. And once it leaves, say the web browser world, because we're a SaaS solution, and we send it out and it goes out to the mobile. Again, I think you hit the nail right on the head. It's got to be simple, and for us, it's got to be consumable. People, like when I send out a news brief or somebody sends out a news brief, they have to see that news brief and they have to be able to understand what's going on at any given point. And that's what we do very well at MediaMiser. Again, we are about giving people what's relevant and removing what's not relevant.
Well, I like this, is that, the lesson there for me and for those who are listening or watching is that there's I don't know, maybe there's a pervasive feeling that functionality has to be mimicked on the desktop to the mobile device. And I think what you're saying is very clearly that the desktop experience is drastically different. It could be an input or a setup mechanism. That's where you set up your triggers. That's where you set up your searches. But the mobile device is the delivery mechanism, the way that you receive the information. Sure, you can do a little bit of cross functionality where you can tailor what you want to get, but really you're tailoring that functionality for the device that's best suited for the device. And I love that. People who try to do too much, they try to jam web-based or desktop-based technology onto a mobile device, fail, simply because the UI won't accept it. The fact that we interact with these devices 200 times in a day, but for 30 seconds each, we got to take that into consideration when we're building these things out. So I love that you guys are doing that. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's ironic too that some people are doing this, yet when Steve Jobs actually created the iPhone, which I guess some people would argue that he didn't start the revolution. Other people have started the revolution before that, but the one thing that he did, he brought simplicity. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one thing that we can all learn from: simplicity, elegance, and that's at MediaMiser. That's one of our goals when it comes to mobile.
All right, so now I got to spend a few minutes just about the future, like navel gazing around or stargazing. Navel gazing always means I think I'm sleeping, right? So stargazing over how you see mobile influence the way that PR is going. So I want to just throw out something like Siri and the voice revolution that we're embarking on. I mean, how is this technology going to change PR? Because to most people, PR means a press release, a media hit, and being alerted when that happens. How does mobile really start to enable? I bring it back to things like Siri and things like location-aware technologies. What does that do for your industry?
Well, I think when it comes down to it, it's actually, if it's used properly, and I want to highlight used properly and developed properly, it should facilitate communications and should make communications better, not just by speed, but with greater clarity. Again, one of the things that we're working on is being able to, for example, if you're out in the field and you're communicating with a journalist, you should be able to communicate that back to the rest of the team. And you need a central hub, which will be essentially a server or your web server, your platform. And as I was mentioning before, in this case right here, this is the ability for your mobile device, as long as it's nice and simple, to create content, to be able to facilitate communications. And that's what's going to happen. Mobile is helping people facilitate communications. And when you look at it, a lot of people might say, well, mobile can be dangerous because you can get things out too quickly. But to be honest with you, I know with my own communications with my wife, it's probably been improved through mobile. You know what I mean? Yes. And say if I tick her off and she doesn't even want to look at me or see my face, she can even text me. You know what I mean? That might sound a little bit dysfunctional, but in some ways it's actually sometimes sometimes you need your alone space and you just don't want to talk to somebody. You can just text them. And for myself, I wouldn't go as far as saying that mobile has improved my relationship with my wife or something like that. I think that's a little bit crazy, but I think it does facilitate communications amongst amongst people. And I don't think a lot of people see it that way. I think a lot of people think that sometimes mobile is can be can make life a little bit more dysfunctional, but I just don't see it that way. Even with kids, I mean, this is what people are gravitating towards mobile because it just makes sense. Period.
Well, I mean, you're not going to get an argument from me around this, and I think that more and more people are spending more and more time in front of these devices, and that's the sign, obviously, that what we're intaking is smaller bites of information and much more tailored bites of information for us. And I think that's the piece that I think that mobile plays for this, and especially in an attention deficit world, we really need this kind of this upper level of intelligence of information that's coming at us in a way that we want to get it and that we can comprehend and digest. And that's in multiple forms, right? It can be audio, it can be video, it's going to be text, it's going to be photos, it's going to be all that stuff, but all relevant at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I think there is room for mobile etiquette. Like, I think when people see, I don't know what the word is, but when mobile etiquette is lacking with individuals, people see that as maybe cause for concern, or the world's falling apart because of mobile. But I think those are isolated incidents. I think as it becomes more pervasive, people are going to learn how to be more appropriate with their mobile devices and how to leverage them properly.
Well, I think that it's so fascinating what's going on here, because all these businesses are cropping up that are adapting. They're not cropping up. Like MediaMiser has adapted to the technology shifts that have gone on, and they're fundamental shifts, and there's still many, many, many more shifts to happen in the mobile space, especially as this technology becomes pervasive. When we move into things like connected television sets and more tablet access and connected dashboards in the car and in the home and in the kitchen, all of a sudden you've got this where it's not just about PR professionals receiving information about something. It's also about the fact that that stupid smart fridge where it'll say, hey, did you know that there's a recall in this kind of a food? And that's a PR statement, right? That you as a consumer will consume because of the place and time with which it is being pushed out at you, which is pretty amazing.
Well, it's interesting too, because we can see right now between marketing, PR, and even advertising, there's a bit of convergence happening within the industry where people don't know like who's in charge of social media, who's in charge of this, who's in charge of that. And hold on a second there. Yeah, there we go. There was my landline going off there in the back there. So I just hung up on somebody.
You've just dashed everybody's view of the future of PR because you have a desktop phone.
Well, here I should have just turned off the ringer and I just hung up on the person because I didn't want to interrupt this conversation.
Whoever that is, hopefully they're watching this.
I'll have to look up there, but that's also another statement I'd like to make. I know how to use my smartphone, but I can't use a landline now. So.
It's so classic. I love that. Well, I found, you're not gonna be able to see this, but I found I'm gonna pull it up here. I found a few pictures of the Palm Tungsten T3. Boy, was it ever a clunky device. If I look at it now, it's just incredible. But there's one picture here that you'll see when you watch the video. It is an insane setup that I did, which was the old phone on a pop-out keyboard. Remember the fold-up keyboards in the Palm days, and with the stylus on top. And that was my portable office. I thought, wow, this is the coolest thing. It's a portable tablet. Pretty awesome. Wow, those were the days.
Yeah, in fact, one of the things that you might appreciate this too was back in 1999. I don't know if you remember, if QNX had a partnership with 3Com, and they developed something called the Audrey. Dan Dodge was given an Audrey by 3Com. It was actually featured on Oprah, and they gave it out to Oprah's audience. And it was the Audrey was actually a computer appliance for the kitchen. It was actually we actually have it. We actually have Dan Dodge's original Audrey, and I can send you pictures of that too. It's actually sitting in our office. It's pretty old, but it's pretty cool. It looks very George Jetson like.
I love it.
But we have the original. This is the original iPad. Believe it or not, it had a touchscreen, everything. And what I could do with it, my wife had it in the kitchen for a while, and it would have a calendar, and you could browse the web with it. And I really tricked this thing out. I could actually plug my T3 into it. Now I have to do it through like a serial cable, but I would plug my T3 in it. It would sync up our calendars.
I was so advanced back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, this was like 1999. So actually, in retrospect, I think it was like 2001 that I got my hands onto it. What happened, I guess, we all know the history with Palm and 3Com. 3Com was having some difficulties around the year 2000, just like a lot of other companies were in the high-tech bust, I guess. And they basically spun off Palm, and with it came the death of the Audrey. So, but it's kind of neat because back then that was the original, in my mind, that was the original iPad.
I love it. I love it. All right. So, Brett, I've taken up so much of your time. How do people find out more information about you guys?
Well, they can go to www.MediaMiser.com, or you can go to Turning News into Knowledge, which is our blog. And of course, you can find some of our apps on the App Store. Right now, you can get WIM News. So if you type in WIM News, WIM News, you can find that app, and that's 99 cents. Or you can even download our free app, and that's MediaMiser U. Now, if you're interested in MediaMiser services, yes, please call us. Go through our website, www.mediamiser.com, or contact sales@mediamiser.com. Get a hold of us. We'll get a hold of you right away. And if you want to have a mobile briefing solution, we can set you up with that.
Pretty amazing. And you're all in Ottawa, which is the best part of this all.
And we're going to kick butt.
And this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
I love it. Brett, I've been speaking with Brett Serjeantson, who is the founder and CEO of a company called MediaMiser. Go to MediaMiser.com. It's up there on the screen. You'll see it there. There's a link up in the top right corner, which is their blog. Go and read that if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about what these guys are doing. Reach out to them. If you have any questions about this or any other episode, obviously reach out to me at untether@gmail.com. If you guys out there have some questions around PR and mobile, how this is going to be matched and how this is the perfect match, reach out. I'll funnel questions. I'll bring them on to Brett. I'll force him to answer these questions. If you have anything around, if you have any questions around this, reach out, please, untether@gmail.com. I want to thank you guys, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, for bringing this into your day. I really appreciate it very, very much. The fact that you spend some time with me every day means a lot. Brett, thank you for being a part of this as well. We'll see everybody next time on untether.tv. Thanks, Brett.
Thanks. Thank you.